Okay. If you guys are getting kind of annoyed for how long and kind of, about me, I guess, these videos are, I promise you, this is the last one. Just bear with me for, however long it takes for me to talk about this. So, like Friday's video, this video is meant to be sort of any final thoughts I have about, everything. And I really do, it actually occurred to me just recently that I do these videos every year. And with each passing year, things change. I mean, looking back on everything, it really is sort of, it makes you wonder, for example, how different things would be if, say, the pandemic never happened. It really is sort of again, it gives a little bit of, perspective. Oh. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of random how, actually, let me fix the tree real fast. Okay. That looks to be a bit better. Alright. Now it's, that's it, there you go. There we go. Now that, actually, let me turn away just a little, there we go. I mean, this video shouldn't have a problem with any strobing light effects or anything, but just in case, I sort of kind of mitigate a little bit. So, I guess one thing I definitely need to stress is just how traumatizing, that sort of beginning era for, when I contemplated suicide was. Because if you recall, I mentioned that in health class, we saw the movie I Am Sam. I saw that scene where, they take the kid away, largely because of, Sean Penn's character being, he was high-functioning autistic, but, autistic nonetheless. And, it occurred to me, are they going to take away my kid if, if that happened to me? If I had a kid, are they going to take that kid away from me? But, as time went on, because I really did truly believe that this autism spectrum bullshit was going to follow me wherever I went, even if I was no longer under the thumb of those ridiculously stupid faculty I had to put up with. Because, the most extreme example you could ever see would easily be the idea of, let's say I ran for president of the United States. If the public sees any sort of political figure as someone not mentally prepared to take the role to, lead the most free country in the world, they will destroy that person. The media would have a field day putting up with whatever it is I would do, even if I clearly wasn't doing anything wrong. It's a little risky to talk about this, but when I first turned 18, that was the first year I was allowed to vote, was the year that Barack Obama got elected president of the United States. And to this day, I remember the media was just a complete circus, over the issue of Barack Obama being the first black president we'd ever have. Like, it got to the point where it got, really racial. And, yeah, I know that, that's a racial issue, whereas, what I'm talking about is more of a mental issue. But the thing about the media in general, it's all cut from the same cloth. I mean, if the media deems something about you that's unlikable, they'll eat you alive. They will. I mean, some people tend to ignore that sort of thing simply because, I mean, personally, me, for example, I don't really watch the news. Listen, if it's like a really important news story that's actually worth everyone's time, okay, maybe I'll watch that, but I'm not gonna, be one of those paranoid people who like lay on the couch all day, watching the news, looking for something that's, triggering, I guess. Like, I don't want that to be me. Like, that shouldn't be how anyone lives their life. And I guess I also need to talk about, because, how do I put this? I was having a conversation regarding me doing these videos with my mom and dad. And, I mean, look, my parents are not really the most sensitive people, but I wouldn't say this bothered me, but this is worth talking about. And that's the fact that, I mean, do I need to do these videos every year? Which is a fair question to ask. I mean, you would think doing this video once would be enough. Especially when, this is the internet. When you post something up there, even if you try and delete it, it's going to be on there forever, whether you realize it or not. However, I literally just thought of it as I woke up this morning. For starters, again, from year to year, things change. I can tell you that both mentally and emotionally, I'm in a much better position in 2023 than when I did these videos in 2022. And also, I mean, look, this is just what I think. This doesn't have to be what anyone else thinks, but this is arguably the greatest low, high, and act of kindness that I talk about each and every year. I mean, think about it for a second. I mean, the low comes from the fact that, this was a sad time in my life, and, it's affected, everything up till now. And, it does get emotional. It does make me feel sad. It does, make me forget everything that I've accomplished. I mean, it just, to this day, it still hurts. And yeah, I go to therapy and I see, people about that sort of thing. I do. But let's say for the sake of argument that, it does help me. Who's to say that doing these videos every year doesn't help anyone else? New and more people experience this sort of emotional trauma every day. Let alone every year. It's very possible that, maybe one year these videos don't reach anyone. Only for the next year for these videos to reach lots of people. It's very possible that, you know, only one person per year, you know, gravitates towards this story. Well, depending on the severity of how depressed they are, hearing this story could be what they need to carry on in life. And I'm trying to think of there's unfortunately, this happens quite literally every video I ever do. But I literally feel like I have a point, but then I immediately forget what I was about to say. I'm sorry. Oh, right. I was talking about how this is the greatest low, high nights of kindness that I do every year. Because, yeah, the low comes from how, again, I mean, on the whole, at this point, I have no problem talking about how at one point I contemplated suicide. Especially when, again, I'm here today. And, again, as sad as the lows get regarding how all this makes me feel, the highs come from, you know, ultimately changing my mind. I mean, yes, me not committing suicide really is because of what happened with Andrew Einstein. And to this day, I'm happy to say I'm not the only one who's saddened by it. But through everything through all of the lowest and darkest valleys, I've stood atop the mountain more than a few times myself. I mean, because of, you know, presumably being on the autism spectrum and special ed, you know, no one ever thought I'd ever graduate, you know, even high school, but I did. No one ever thought I'd graduate college, but I did. It must have never computed for anyone that I would not only run a marathon, not only would I ride a bike for 100 miles for the sake of charity, but I would do that within 3 months of each other, 4 years in a row. And, I mean, there are people who have done the Tour de Cuca. There are people that have done the Wineglass Marathon in the same year. I am 100% sure I'm the only person who's ever done that 4 years in a row. I did that. Me. And no one can ever take that away from me. No one can ever take my college diploma away from me. Nobody can ever tell me that I couldn't do it, because I did. And if it wasn't for, I will admit though, if it wasn't for getting properly diagnosed with depression and pragmatic communication disorder, chances are I probably don't really, you know, speak with such bravado about this. But if I committed suicide, I'd never be able to say that. I wouldn't have got to that moment in August of 2021 when I was given my proper diagnosis. And all because of, you know, I like to say that my mom's only had one good idea, but now that I think about it, yeah, going to this organization, I'm not going to say who it is, that helps others seeking for, different career paths, based on, disabilities. I mean, technically, yes, this is a good idea, but this is a government-related thing, and let's be real here. The government takes forever to get anything done. I mean, it was literally January of 2021 when, I started that process. It wasn't until August I was given a proper diagnosis, and that was after months of, occasional testing, whatever. Because again, you can't just simply say, hey, I have a disability, please help me. It doesn't work that way. Like, they actually gotta make sure that anything wrong with you is legitimate. In a way that's, fair. Which, I mean, for once, you can't say that the government isn't using a fair process. And, I mean, again, I might work for my family, but again, say for, my grandmother and I guess maybe my father, I went from just simply not hating working at my family shop, but I just can't freaking stand it. I mean, I'll be honest, I know nothing about flooring. Well, okay, I shouldn't say that. I mean, you work there long enough, obviously you're going to pick up a couple of things, and, obviously, I've sold things to customers before, I have. But I'm not doing it with any kind of passion. Not to mention, again, it's the other people who work there that utterly piss me off. I mentioned how there was one person who passed away, and not only was I not sad that he passed away, but I mentioned how he was either going to die or get his ass kicked and then die. I mean it. Like, this guy would, legitimately harass his way into getting whatever he wanted. In fact, there was something I was trying to keep secret once. He harassed it out of me. And then, you know what, I was going to save this for if this guy really ever pushed my buttons. But I've commonly referred to this person as the Eric Cartman of Corning, New York. Straight up, it's my uncle. I really do think he is the absolute worst human being I think I've ever known. He's easily the worst. Seriously, I made it known that my brother is the most insensitive person I know. What keeps him from being the worst is that he's not my uncle. I'll say that much. So, I'm just going to leave it there. Although, trust me, if my uncle ever did anything to really make me upset, you would see me doing a video where I'm at my most angry. I can assure you of that. And believe me, he's come close. He's come real close. But I restrained myself. Believe me, that wasn't easy to do. And then there's what happened after I was properly diagnosed. Because I mentioned how, it felt as if a weight was lifted off of my shoulders. It felt as if that I could breathe again. It felt as if I could finally be happy. And that's true. I mentioned how, doing these series of videos I do every year, it's the greatest low, high, and active kindness I do every year. I mean, my low comes from all the bad memories I have. My high comes from everything I did, regarding things that no one ever thought I could do. My act of kindness was it's not maybe, my act of kindness is, doing these videos because, again, someone really could use this to, help themselves. It's possible. For me, doing this is something I have to do because, it helps me alleviate some of that guilt that I feel about every year. I mean, I guess it's always going to be there. I guess it may never go away. But if I can use this story to help others, why not? But it wasn't until 2021 where I genuinely felt like this could help a lot of people. It could. Again, it's just a pipe dream, I guess. And doing stuff like that, that's what brought about that just level of sheer happiness. I mean, believe me, what kept me from crying when I got properly diagnosed, and by crying, I mean crying tears of joy, is because, again, I couldn't help but think all the autism spectrum bullshit I went through for literally my entire life was not needed. It didn't need to happen. Which leads to the inverse effect from it. Because I was finally allowed to be open with my emotions. I was finally free to be happy. But I don't think anything could have prepared me for, I'll just say it, the worst sadness I've ever felt. Which was getting my heart broken. I've shared this story before, but for those of you who don't know, for many years, there was one girl that I really liked, whether I realized it or not. When I had finally moved to Elmira, I was finally able to see her again. Every week, I would go to a place called Bernie Murray's, hoping I'd see her. And I did. And it was about the only thing I looked forward to every week. In the midst of finally moving here, earlier in 2019, my brother and I got into a huge argument. Well, I say huge argument. It really is, again, my brother is the most insensitive person in my family. And for once, I finally did what somebody should have done years ago and told him off. Of course, my brother's also a complete wuss. So, because of what I did, he and I barely speak for pretty much the entire time his wife was pregnant. We were thankfully able to reconcile about a week before my twin nephews were born. But it became abundantly clear the type of person that my brother really is. I mean, granted, once you become a parent, that is something you're always defined as. I know that, and I respect that. But I know that my brother would use just about any excuse he felt necessary to banish me from ever seeing those boys ever again. Thus, enter the pandemic, when everybody had to stay indoors, stop the spread, don't get sick. And so I had to make a choice. I could stay indoors, do exactly that, not get sick from COVID, and eventually I would be allowed to see my nephews again. I wouldn't see my nephews for 3 months. Yeah, from March of 2020 to June of 2020, I wouldn't see them. However, I couldn't go out and see that girl anymore. Because even if I never got sick with COVID, if my brother found out, he'd never let me see my nephews ever again. I say this because, believe it or not, this one girl that I see whenever I go to Illegal, she actually worked at Burning Rivers and she remembered all this. And remember how I said that, you know, something emotional kind of came up around that time and, you know, that's something I have to deal with? That was it. And about a week later, I told this girl, listen, don't feel bad for making me feel bad about this. You know, because what's going on, that's on me. And I proceeded to tell her the exact story I'm telling you right now about the fact my brother and I got in an argument. I, you know, pretty much chose my nephews over this woman that I liked. And because of that, you know, this woman wound up finding somebody else, and July 29th of this year, she got married. Thankfully, this one girl at Illegal, after telling her this story, said that, you know, I made the right choice. And to some degree, she's absolutely correct. You know, I'm in my nephews' lives. I get to see them. You know, they get to know who their uncle is. But at the end of the day, this ring is not on that woman's finger. My Trinity Pauling class ring. Yeah, I'll admit I was going to go old school. For those of you who don't know, old school would be giving a girl your class ring as a sign of, you know, wanting to go steady. Obviously, even if I was with this girl, I have to work my way to that, but that's what I would have done. You know, after building a foundation of, you know, love and trust and respect, you know, I would have given her, you know, my class ring, sign we're going steady. I tell you what, this hurt. Getting my heart broken really hurt me. In a way, it still does. And remember how I mentioned earlier that I thought my mom only had one good idea? That idea was originally, you know, dating this girl. And obviously, because it was a good idea, she changed her mind. How about that? And her reasoning, and this always baffles me, because my mom had seen this girl a hell of a lot less than I have. Yet somehow my mom got into the idea that, like, this girl is snooty, stuck up, basically the kind of person that I really shouldn't associate myself with. I'm not saying that my mom is right, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I did kind of see it a little bit. But at the end of the day, getting your heart broken is still getting your heart broken. And that's why January of 2022, up until literally September of that year, like, I just felt as if I was in an emotional fog. Like, I'd be around, I'd be present, you know, I have, you know, at this point, 3 nephews, you know, I'll be there, I'll be a good uncle for them, and you know what, I may not be entirely happy, but you know what, I'll be there. And then came the 2 weddings I went to that year, and that single-handedly saved my year. And I was ready to go into I knew that this girl getting married was going to happen. I really didn't know when at that point. So you know what? I'll make 2023 a good year. And damn it if it hasn't been a good year. You know, from doing stuff like cabin fever to going to different pop-up meetings, I figured out what self-love is. And I did that all on my own. None of that ever happens if I commit suicide. But here I am. And then, you know, came the day this girl got married. I was legitimately ready to, again, be in an emotional fog. Again, I'd be present. I'd be there. You know, I'd be there for my nephews. But that's all I could do. And then the next day, what followed would turn into what's pretty much going to be known as the greatest 5 months of my life. Because I've been invited to parties. I've sang karaoke. I've been to country music concerts. You know, I've had Cuca Lake. I always had Cuca Lake. You know, I did all that. You know, football games. I went to football games. You know, going over to, you know, Illegal More to see my friend who works there. That doesn't sound like much, but you know what? It can mean a whole lot, you know? I did all that. If I commit suicide, I don't experience a low as a valley as deep as that low of getting heartbroken. But I also don't experience the mountaintop that's as high as these last almost 5 months. With Christmas just a couple of days away, I really feel as if, you know, I'm emotionally ready now for it. It's not I ever have been not emotionally ready, but, you know, ever since I started doing videos, I knew at some point I have to talk about this. Who would have thought I'd ever lead to what's going on right now? But again, that's what happens from year to year. Things change. The first time I ever did the Why I Still Am Here video, it was only a half hour long. And, you know, I really thought I talked everything I had to. Only for, again, I had to do a sort of housekeeping video the next day. And as years gone on, this series has gotten, you know, bigger and more emotional. And again, that just happens throughout the years. And I really am glad for that, because it really does show how far I've come in life. So on the whole, I really am extremely happy that I do this. I'm happy that I get to do this. And yeah, doing this does get emotional. And yes, you know, it may be uncomfortable for some people to hear. And, you know, my parents do have a fair point. I don't need to do this every year. But for one thing, again, I get to do this. But who's to say that this doesn't help anyone? Who's to say that, you know, even a mere mentioning of this video doesn't drastically change the course of a person's life? Because in January of 2009, I was about ready to end it all. But it took the passing of Andrew Einstein to change everything. Now I'm here. And I can assure you all that I'm not going anywhere. I won't. Although, with that being said, there is someone in mind who, again, after building a foundation of love and trust and respect, I wouldn't mind giving a certain someone this ring. Of course, again, at the end of the day, well, really at the end of the day, it really is up to, whether this girl even wants to see me. But, it's an idea. And, pretty big things come from pretty simple ideas when you think about it. I mean, by all accounts, it was a simple idea that I started making videos on January 1st of 2018. And look where I am now. But that's just me. So, thank you for putting up with this series of videos again. I'm sorry if this gets a little annoying that I spend so much time talking about this. I mean, I really do want to cover over all the angles. I really do want to be honest about it. And, if this helps you in any way, I hope it does help you. And if it does, that's great. But no matter what, if there's one thing I am absolutely happy I get to say now, every day, is that I am beyond humbled that I got to share all of this with you. And I get to do this every day. I am beyond hopeful that, you hear my story, spread the word, and use it to help others if possible. And of course, I hope you have a nice day doing so. And always remember that there are people in your life who love and care about you, whether they're family or friends or whatever. If you ever need to talk, believe me, you're going to find a lot of people in your life who will listen to you if you just simply ask. I will. So, I hope everyone has a nice day. Christmas is a couple days away. Getting really excited for that. And if you're worried about being on the nice or naughty list, it's never a bad time to make good choices. Have a nice day.